Now to one of the top stories we're covering today, last night's Democratic presidential debate. CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is joining us now from Atlanta for a recap of that debate. So, yeah, they did touch on the impeachment topic right off the bat, sort of early on. But what was sort of interesting about this debate is that they also touched on other topics that they typically don't get around to, like child care and things like that. Do you think there's a reason we're seeing some of these other topics bubbling up now?
I just think, Anne-Marie, that it was the fact that they haven't been discussed before, and that every one of these debates so far has led off with about 20 minutes of conversation about health care. So when I heard them talk about child care and how to pay for it, something we've heard about from voters is a real immediate and urgent concern for a lot of people these days, I just thought, great. You know, there's something new, substantive, and certainly relevant to people watching, especially those that continue to tell us that they see impeachment going on back in Washington, but they want to hear the candidates talk about real sort of kitchen table issues, and they certainly did last night. There's a contrast between a plan from Amy Klobuchar that would basically provide up to 3 months of paid leave, and one that would give up to about 6 months of paid leave from Kamala Harris. And there was a bit of an argument, and it's a perfectly healthy one, about whether 3 months or 6 months is suitable, and how much of that the federal government should pay for, how much perhaps employers should put up. So again, just a good example of the kind of things that were discussed last night that don't normally get brought up on stage.
And you knew they were going to have to touch on impeachment because that's what everyone's sort of talking about. But I thought it could be a dicey topic for the candidates. A, because, well, they are all basically on the same page, so how do they differentiate themselves from each other? And also, you know, how much time do you want to spend talking about President Trump? How do they handle the impeachment topic?
Well, first of all, and we've talked about this before, not everyone is talking about impeachment. They know it's happening. Democrats especially are watching it closely. But the candidates don't talk about it out on the trail because A, they don't get asked about it, and B, our polling and everyone else just says, talk to us about everything else. Talk to us about what you do once you catch the car and how you would drive it for the next 4 to 8 years. So really all it was yes, impeachment should happen. It should have happened yesterday. We'll see it through. But Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg especially said, look, this party cannot afford to become obsessed with President Trump. We have to be providing actual substantive examples of what we would do instead were Democrats to take back control of White House and perhaps full control of Congress. And so very quickly, after unanimity about impeachment, they moved on to all those other issues as they have in the past. And it's part of the reason why the issue kind of just cancels itself out, because at least among Democrats, they understand it's happening, they want it to happen, and there's really no disagreement about it at all.
So Amy Klobuchar, she had a couple of zingers, I think in a way that you haven't really seen her perform in some of the previous debates. At one point she talked about how women are held to a higher standard as candidates. After the debate, you actually spoke to her about that moment. I want to play that.
I wanted to make a pitch to voters because there's clearly some kind of different standard going on when we have had, as I said, name your favorite woman president or vice president, and we can't. It has been all men, yet women are half the population, over half the population.
So what do you suppose she's bringing that up now? Does she think that that might be, you know, a challenge for her and other women on the stage there?
Part of the reason she's bringing it up, Anne-Marie, 2 words, Pete Buttigieg, because she's been arguing over the last 2 weeks that if there was a young 37-year-old female mayor of a small town in the Midwest, she likely wouldn't be on stage alongside all those other people because she's a woman. Argument being, as she has said, women are held to a higher standard. It's harder for them to break through, not only in politics, but in the corporate world and every other aspect of society. She's got a good point there. And she made the point to me, not going to whine about it, going to plow through and make my case. But every woman out there knows exactly what I'm talking about, she said, and the point needs to be made.
So speaking of those 2 words, Pete Buttigieg, he's been surging in the polls, particularly in Iowa. You spoke to him last night about his pitch to President Trump's supporters in New Hampshire. Let's play what he had to say.
The pitch is we're not going to agree on everything, but I think we can agree that we need to restore decency and dignity to Washington, that this president is as insulting to Republican values as he is to the progressive and democratic values that I believe in, and that we can put together a coalition to build a different future.
So is this something that Democratic candidates are doing? Are they trying to appeal to Trump voters?
I mean, sure, a voter's a voter, so they'll take anyone. But Budaj especially, given his more moderate positions on issues like Joe Biden, like Amy Klobuchar, has a better shot at winning over a former Trump voter or a Republican voter if they are so disillusioned by what's going on right now at the White House that they are looking for an alternative. And remember, there are a lot of people who voted for President Obama once or twice and switched over to Donald Trump, and it's a bit of an obsession of some of these campaigns to win back those people. They are found mostly in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, and yeah, New Hampshire as well, the swing states where they have a tendency to go back and forth, but had been voting pretty reliably for Democrats for quite some time, and now, given what's going on with the president, might be at least willing to hear out the Democrats. And that's why so many Democrats argue we need somebody who's more moderate, somebody who has crossover appeal, because there are people out there seeking a potential alternative. And if you end up nominating someone like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders with their far more liberal views on health care and the economy, taxes and whatnot, it would be very hard for the party to potentially grow its appeal.
Ed, thank you so much for the roundup. Thanks.